Marketer of the Day, episode 647. Live the e-commerce dropship lifestyle and make your Shopify store the best it can be with Anton Kraly.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Marketer of the Day podcast. We're chatting with Anton Kraly, and Anton is the founder and CEO of Dropship Lifestyle and eCommerce Lifestyle. And Anton focuses on empowering people through e-commerce and better marketing. And he and his team are constantly researching and testing to discover what works best in digital marketing and e-commerce. So Anton, glad to be talking to you.
Yeah, Robert, happy to be here. Thanks so much for having me on.
Super glad to have you. And I think I've been following you for maybe 3 or 4 years. I've been watching your videos where you're in the glass office, and you're one of the first people I've seen that had one of those websites with the animated headline where it looks like someone's like typing out each letter and like highlighting and backspacing. So I guess you're a pioneer in that way, right?
Oh, very cool. I don't know. Yeah, I'm sure I didn't come up with that idea myself. Probably a web designer we had hired for that. But yeah, I love that when I first saw it as well. Always trying to do new creative things like that, though. You know how many people there are in these spaces, so we need to find ways to stand out.
Right. Being on the cutting edge and stand out even just 1% or 5% more than everyone else, especially in this whole breakneck, cutthroat, drop shipping, e-commerce sort of space. So tell me about that. So what do you do exactly with this drop shipping e-commerce stuff?
Sure. Yeah. So Dropship Lifestyle is like the educational community part of the business where we connect with people that do similar things or that are looking to. But in the e-commerce side of things, what we do is build dropshipping stores. But just to get this out of the way before people start thinking like, oh, I heard about this, I don't want to do that. What I'm talking about is not the model of dropshipping from China, not having these long lead times, not selling these cheap little trinkets and whatnot through Facebook ads. That's not what we do. It is drop shipping, but it's not how we approach the business. What we do is look for manufacturers of products that make high quality items. We also look to see if they have inventory available in the United States, because that's where we do business. And we become an online retailer of those products. So basically, our job is to build good looking websites, to get high quality traffic, to turn that traffic into sales. And from there, we have the brands that we partner with ship the items direct to the consumer. So we don't see them, we don't touch them, but we are the retailer that gets the sales.
Awesome. So what I'm hearing from you is that all the drudgery, all the stuff that's slow and a lot of work and not fun, leave that to someone else. It's our job to do the fun stuff, the stuff that looks good, the marketing, and then we just hook into their back-end interface. But we focus on getting traffic, getting sales, and making money, making it a smooth experience for these buyers.
Exactly. And the way that, you could think of it is like what our job is basically to be the marketers, but also the not fulfillment in the sense of product, but fulfillment in the sense of customer experience. So as long as we can bring customers through the door, we could treat them right, we can give them a great experience, then we're building our business as the seller of product XYZ, whatever it may be. And then, somebody else is fulfilling that order. So yeah, when I actually started, way back in like 2007, I didn't know about drop shipping and I was importing back then. And yeah, it's a totally different business. Like that part, I'm not a fan of. Bringing in containers, dealing with fulfillment centers, logistics, returns. It's much easier when you're working on the dropship model.
Awesome. And so it seems like, as far as a lot of this e-commerce stuff, that it seems like it to be so easy now, right? Well, easy in the sense that it's fast to get up and running, but then maybe not so easy in the sense that there's a lot of competition now, right? Like it seems like even just a few years ago, you might have had startup costs, you might have had some custom software coding costs. And I don't do all that much e-commerce stuff, but I've been so amazed when I have friends that show me they'll set up like a quick WordPress site or WordPress plugin and hook into some database of some supplier and just click a few things and build up a product catalog and click a few more things and add a shopping cart, one-click upsell, pop-ups, things like that. So it seems to be a lot more evolved these days than it was just a few years ago.
Yeah, even like when I first got started back in the day, the platform of choice then was called Yahoo Stores. And like that was still even relatively simple to use. Like you could, it was a drag and drop page builder, and I was able to figure it out, like not being technical at all. But where we're at now with Shopify, which is our platform of choice for the past probably like 5 years now, but they just make it so easy, and more than just easy, they make it affordable. So I'll give you an example. Like way back in the day, I wanted to have a wish list functionality added to one of my stores. So if somebody was visiting, they can build their wish list, come back later and buy it all. And to have that done on my store it was between like $3,000 and $5,000 to have that built. And now with Shopify, there's apps that will do that for less than $10 a month. So yeah, it's much easier, not just to build a website that looks good, but to have it do like these, what I would consider advanced things, by either, spending sometimes free a month for the apps, and sometimes like $5-10. So that part's easier. As far as competition, there are definitely more online sellers. Even just Shopify alone now, there's over 800,000 stores on their platform, which like that blows my mind. That's so many people that are actively, paying them every month to build their stores. But the thing is, like, as the market gets more mature with more sellers, what our job is to be better marketers. So the stuff that I did back in 2007, that probably stopped working or didn't work as well sometime around like 2010. And the stuff I did in 2010, by 2012, again, things had shifted and I had to get more creative. And again, like every few years, there's just like this constant cycle of, first of all, finding better suppliers, better products, doing things that are better for conversions on your own website, finding new ways to attract customers, finding new ways to keep them coming back. So one thing that I try to tell people that are in this business, in e-commerce, whether you're drop shipping or importing, it doesn't matter, but you can never get comfortable. Like even if you're doing very well, month over month you're growing, you should never take anything for granted, because again, things change the way, just with internet speed, like you got to be on top of the business. You always have to be a student. I'm always trying to learn new stuff. And it's because if you don't, again, give it a couple of years and what used to work will be gone.
And that is something that took me a few iterations, a few years for sure to figure out. And that's reassuring to hear from you in that that's just the name of the game, right? Every few years, it's whatever aspect of internet marketing is going to completely go out the window and things are going to change. And the first couple of times that happened to me, I felt really down on myself. I thought to myself, I just figured it out. And then now all this stuff stopped working. And I thought, does that mean I'm just not good or I'm a failure? Mm-hmm. And then once I realized, okay, well, the name of the game is to figure it out. And then in a few years, things are going to change. And then you figure it out again. And then it's our job to be the person that kind of navigates that path. And a lot of our competitors out there, they're going to give up. So if we just stay current on some of those trends, or we stay aware of what people are doing or where things are headed, or what new traffic sources or whatever, then we'll win and the others will lose.
Exactly. And like you said, some people do give up. And what more people do than that is they'll like basically see their sales either start to flatline or maybe decrease a little bit. And what they'll do is just they'll accept it and kind of tell themselves a story of like, this is the market now, this is how things are, and this is my, my new reality, right? My new business. And the truth is there's still a ton of companies out there growing. They're just focusing on these either new technologies or new ways of marketing, or even sometimes new product opportunities. So, one thing that we try to do so we don't wait too long and fall behind is we take about 90% of our resources, as far as even people like our team and money, and for ad budgets. And that 90% goes into like what's working now, what's proven. And then we have about 10% of what I call like experimental resources, which again is our time and money. And that goes into things that might fail completely or might be the next opportunity. So we're always trying to do that.
That's a really good strategy. I like that a lot. So 10% of your resources are into playing around and trying new things. Like you said, they might be complete dead ends, but if you don't have that 10%, then it's just going to be maybe not an instant downward slide, but eventually things will stagnate unless you have just that 10% to play around.
Yes. And like, we'd rather learn now what those new things are before we have to. We'd rather get there first rather than trying to adjust and, grabbing for straws. So I really do recommend, no matter what business anybody's in, whether it's e-commerce or software or info or whatever, like it's worth it. It's worth experimenting.
Awesome. So you say that Shopify is your platform of choice because there are 800,000 sellers, because it's easy to get started, point and click, and then you can use a lot of these apps. And so I have to admit, I've seen a few Shopify stores, but I haven't actually set one up. So like, what are sort of the basic steps of getting a kind of an e-commerce Shopify store set up, in your opinion?
Yeah. So what's good about them also is they have basically like they've brought almost everything into the platform. So it used to be like you would set up an e-commerce store somewhere, then you would have to get a merchant account to accept credit cards somewhere, and like then you'd have to go somewhere and buy a domain name for your store and get hosting, and there were all these different steps. What's good about Shopify is like you go there and you can buy your domain with them for, I think it's $12 or $14 a year. It does cost $29 a month for their regular plan that most people use. But with that, you get the back end of your website. So you can upload product pages. You can also design the front end of your website. So what people will see when they go to yoursite.com. They also partnered with Stripe, which is like the biggest, payment processor in the world. I think it is. But they partnered with them. They have a service called Shopify Payments. And all you have to do is link your checking account number and your bank routing number. And within minutes, you could be set up so that people can go to your website. They can buy anything with whatever credit card they have, whatever debit card. They can use Apple Pay. They can use Google Pay. They can use Amazon Pay, like just anything they want. And then the money will get deposited into your account 2 days later. So just the whole process of like idea to actual business that can be profitable, it almost it almost can be done in like a day and a half, 2 days. It's really crazy.
So faster than making a regular website, and also maybe even does more than with a regular website because it integrates with all those payments. And I mean, from what little I've seen all kinds of just crazy integrations. Like, for example, if someone adds an item to a cart and they abandon that cart, then it can start showing Facebook ads about that item and hook up to Facebook Messenger and things like that. Is there anything that comes to mind for you about something that just like blows your mind about something that Shopify is capable of doing?
Yeah, the Messenger thing was the first one a few months ago, maybe like 6 months ago now when they introduced that. But yeah, it'll do that. It'll do abandoned cart reminders via Facebook Messenger, which works pretty good, but can't send too money or people are not happy about it. But the thing that really was like, whoa, this is next level, is when they introduced what is known as accelerated payments. And it's like you basically, you change something small on your website in the back end, and it allows you to take, again, Apple Pay and Google Pay. But what it does is it recognizes what device somebody is on your website with. So if you're an iPhone user and you're on an iPhone and you were on, let's say, one of my stores, and I was selling, I don't know, a stand-up desk, and you were there and you wanted that stand-up desk, again, it would know you were on mobile, and there would be a button that said pay with Apple Pay. If you clicked that, you wouldn't have to type in anything. It would just show, do you want to ship it here? It would pull that data from your Apple account, and then you can click pay without typing in address, without entering a credit card number, without doing any of that. So you can buy stuff like within, I think they showed a demo, and it was like 15 seconds versus 2 minutes on a phone of typing in address and credit card number and ship to and bill to and email. Instead, it just pulls that all in. Again, it recognizes it automatically and does the same thing if you're on an Android device. So that was really cool.
Yeah, amazing. And that's kind of that was the whole magic with the Apple App Store, right? In that people could just tap a button and not have to retype everything and just add that to their order. So that's amazing that things are becoming even easier for people to buy from us. So that way they can just tap a few buttons, don't have to spend even those. Imagine how many people that everyone loses from those 3 to 5 minutes of on a phone having to type in your name again and type in your billing address and your shipping address and credit card number. If it's just a few taps away, that is some pretty amazing stuff.
Yeah.
And so yeah. So yeah, Shopify, sounds like this amazing platform, but as you know, it's one thing to to talk about it, but then there's always tons of people that they know about the possibilities and yet they don't implement. So in all of your travels and experiences, why do you think people are struggling even still these days to set up their Shopify stores?
Yeah, so like Shopify is the platform, right? So the way I can compare it to something would be, let's just say you wanted to open a store in your hometown in a strip mall, and you went somewhere and you signed a lease and you had that building. Even if it was a prime location, like you have the building, you have to put stuff in it. You have to have the service when people walk through the door to greet them, to guide them in the right direction. You need to have quality products for them. You need to have, strong support and follow-ups and whatnot. So they give you like that backbone, but like anything else, it's what you do with it. So I think one of the biggest mistakes that a lot of people make when they're first getting set up, especially with drop shipping, is they look for like the easiest, the perceived easiest path to success. And if you go on Google and you search for drop shipping or drop shipping suppliers, what you're going to find are a whole bunch of companies that call themselves drop shippers and drop shipper directories, and they charge like monthly fees, and they say, hey, pay us $69 a month and you'll get access to 1 million products. Now, that, again, I see why people find them and I see why people think that's the path. That I don't recommend anybody ever do, because those companies are just middlemen. They make money off monthly fees. The pricing markups that they have, like you could buy stuff for cheaper on eBay or Amazon usually. So that's like a sure way that you're just not going to succeed. So that's the biggest thing, right? Like, where are you getting your products from? Don't use a supplier directory, and never use a supplier that charges you for access. So if they say, oh yeah, you could sell our stuff, pay us, $500 and we'll give you access, that's a red flag. You don't want to be in business with that type of company. The way to make it work, the first thing I would say is look for expensive products to sell. For us, our average order values are usually $1,000 or more. At a minimum, I'd want to see it around $200. And from there, you want to go out there and not look for companies that call themselves drop shippers. You want to go out there and find the brands that are already making the stuff you want to sell. So I mentioned the stand-up desk because I'm at one right now. So if I wanted to sell these, I would go on Google, I would type in stand-up desks, and I would look for every brand I could find, and I would reach out to those brands and try to form a relationship that way instead of trying to find some directory.
That's really good. Yeah. So you sort of forge your own relationships there instead of taking the path that everyone else uses. And so you mentioned there that you like to sell expensive products, $200+ minimum, if not $1,000 or more. And why is that?
Because it's just so much easier for everything. So my first e-commerce business, I was actually selling cookies online. Long story short, my first business was a delivery route for a bakery in Brooklyn in New York. I had access to these cookies. I learned about e-commerce. I built a website selling cookies because that's all I knew. And that was my first website, but it was also my first successful online business. What I realized, though, is I was getting tons of orders at $15, $20, $30. And I was making, maybe $5 per order net profit. And I was like, this is like, why can't I make more? So I started to look for more and more expensive products. And I found some items that were, $500 and some that were $1,000. And I thought, let me try the same thing I'm doing with the cookies. Let me build a website. Let me set up Google Ads. Let me, put on all these products and see what happens. And what happened is people bought the more expensive stuff also. And instead of making $5 an order, I was making $200, $300, $500 profit on some of them. And that was just like, as soon as sales started coming in, I was like, okay, expensive products are the way to go. You basically can make more money for doing less work because you're processing less orders. And another huge advantage is there's more room in terms of profit per order, which gives you some wiggle room in terms of ad spend. So like, you're selling, let's say, cookie, or let's say you're selling a t-shirt for $30, and between your shipping cost and the shirt cost, it cost you $20, so you would make 10. Well, that would mean you can only spend up to $10 to get an order. And if you spend 10, you would be breaking even, right? So working for free. Whereas if you're selling, let's say, a desk for $1,000 and your profit is $400, you could spend 100 of that 400 on traffic to get the sale and still have 300 profit. So there's a whole bunch of reasons why we like it, but basically it's a lot easier to have a successful business, and it's a lot less work for a lot more money.
That makes a lot of sense. And when you're explaining that, what comes to mind is if you think about like, say, like Taco Bell or something, they might make $1 from you from your purchase. And then when you subtract all of their costs, maybe they're making 10 cents per transaction. And the only way that that can be profitable is if they're just working their tails off, if people are coming and going. And I mean, same thing for like, say, like a gas station convenience store, right? They might have to sell thousands of items and they might lose money on everything except for a handful of items. And that just sounds like a really stressful way to go. And that's great for, Taco Bell or McDonald's because they don't have to advertise. Everyone knows that they're there. But if you're just trying to make your own thing work, maybe it's better to be like the equivalent of a jewelry store where maybe you have slightly less customers, but more profit per sale. And then that way you have the money left over for your reserves and for your ad spend and for that 10% experimental budget, right?
Right. And especially like for most people, I'm sure, well, I shouldn't say that. I know most people I know, like my circle, we're trying to build what I call lifestyle businesses. So like I learned about e-commerce when I read the book, The 4-Hour Workweek, which introduced me to that back in 2007. But the goal isn't to build a business, at least not for me. The goal is not to build a business that gets 10,000 orders a day, where I need a room somewhere with 50 employees that are answering the phones and live chats and support tickets, when I can make the same amount of money with a team of maybe 10 selling a lot less volume, but again, having that profit per sale. So if you want to have a lifestyle business, it's just much easier to manage when you work your way up the price range. And like you said, it leaves you with extra money that you can either reinvest in the business, you could try new things with, you could hire more people if you want to, but that you have that room.
Right. I agree completely. And it's been over a decade since I even looked at the 4-Hour Workweek. I should probably look at that again. But what still sticks with me all these years later is, I mean, that book's all about 80-20 optimization, right? Like a lot of people don't even know what's coming or going. And if you actually look at your numbers, you look at your inputs and outputs, you look at the work that you're doing versus the money that's coming back. I mean, a lot of people are just wasting 80% on stuff that's not make money. And why not flip it? Instead of working 80% of your time to get 20%, why not put in 20% to get 80% back? So yeah, I completely agree. This lifestyle business is the way to go. And so I noticed right before we talked, I was checking out your blog a little bit. I noticed that recently you were talking about how Shopify is great, but it's also important to be set up on some multiple platforms. So can you unpack that a little bit?
Yeah, so for like actually for the orders and whatnot and transactions that we do keep on Shopify, but where I recommend people, I kind of call it like having safety nets. Where I recommend people diversify is how they're bringing people into their business and then how they're following up with messaging. So what happened to us recently was an issue with actually our email service provider, where about a week went by and we noticed sales were down a little bit, but nothing drastic. And then I got an email from the email service provider and it said, hey, we just, can confirm now that for the past week, our shared servers aren't delivering to Yahoo email addresses, and I think it was Hotmail. And like, the message I wanted to share in that new post was like, that is something that can crush a lot of businesses. Like if we relied on email only, then our sales would have dropped a lot more than they did. Instead, they just looked a little bit down. But that's because instead of just using email marketing for remarketing, we're also following people on Facebook. We're also showing them remarketing videos on YouTube. We're showing them Google ads that are remarketing to them. So kind of diversifying how you're communicating with your audience. So if something does go down or if something changes, you have these backups in place so you don't lose a week's worth of sales or whatever it may be.
Very good advice. I love it. So have more than one traffic source and more than one service provider in that sense. And in this day and age, I mean, that just makes sense. And that's easy to do with everything being cloud-based or any of these like service providers. Like even say like the worst happened and your email provider kicked you out, you could always take that list and import it to the new place. I mean, if you lost your merchant account for whatever reason, same deal. Just explain your situation and move your stuff over. I mean, don't think you're just completely married to one service or another, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And things will happen. As everybody grows, there will be issues. So instead of freaking out about it, just have a plan of action. And it's better to have these thoughts beforehand. That way, when things come up, you don't freak out too bad.
Oh yeah, hope for the best and plan for the worst, and then
Definitely.
realize that, like we were saying near the beginning of our conversation, that that's part of the journey. Like you're going to have these earthquakes, you're going to have these things fail on you, and that's just part of doing business, especially doing business in this day and age, and doing business online, and doing business in e-commerce. It's like four different ways that some things can be shaky for all of us. And so we've talked about a lot of really interesting things about using Shopify and having that business mindset and just basically getting things done and ticking all the boxes, but not making things too complicated. And it's one thing for people listening to get a bunch of tips here and there, but sometimes it helps for us to dive into a course that takes us step by step, or even just follow someone like yourself who knows this e-commerce stuff. That way there can be that follow-up, or always stay up to date on what's going on. So if people liked the conversation that you and I had today about drop shipping and e-commerce and lifestyle businesses, and they want to check out what you have to offer, where do you think people should go?
Yeah, sure. So if anybody is like, yep, I want to do this, or you're already doing it and you want to do it better, then just go to dropshiplifestyle.com and click up top where it says courses. You could see what we have to offer there. That's like the quickest path to everything I have to offer. If you're listening to this and you're like, this sounds cool, but I want to learn more, again, just go to dropshiplifestyle.com, click on blog. I've been posting either an article or a new video there every week for almost like 5 years now. So tons of stuff there as a good entry point to get anybody started.
Fantastic. So the place to go is dropshiplifestyle.com. If you're ready to buy something, you're ready to jump into some kind of course. So that way, like Anton said, either get up to speed, or if you're already up to speed, but you want to do it better because things literally change daily, then click on that courses link. And if you're also the kind of person that wants to get some more information, then check out Anton's very excellent, very frequently updated blog. And once again, the place to go is dropshiplifestyle.com. And thanks, Anton, for stopping by and telling us what we need to know.
Thank you, Robert.
Please take a second to rate and subscribe to Marketer of the Day in the iTunes Store. It's free. marketeroftheday.com/iTunes.